My mom stood up at her birthday dinner and called me a freeloading loser. When she announced she was selling the house to stop enabling me, I finally said how exactly all the papers are in my name. This whole mess started when I was 18, and my dad passed away because of a heart attack. Not going to sugarcoat. Losing him sucked, and it left our family in a tough spot. Dad worked at Midwest Manufacturing for 30 years, decent union job with good benefits, but medical bills and funeral costs still hit us hard. Here's where it gets complicated. A 25-year-old had a full scholarship to state, not Harvard or anything fancy, but it would have covered tuition and given me a solid shot at an engineering degree. My mom, Abigail, really wanted me to take it. My siblings, Ryan second-year pre-med, Megan junior in computer science, and Emily high school junior, all assumed I would, but somebody had to help Mom keep the house. The mortgage payments were brutal, and her part-time job at a boutique wasn't cutting it. My siblings all had their paths figured out. Ryan was already committed to medical school. Illa had internships lined up, even once she started working. She made it clear her money was for her. New apartment, travel, house, savings. Helping Mum wasn't on her to-do list, and Emily had colleges recruiting her for marketing program. I made a choice that I thought was temporary. I deferred my scholarship for a year and got into the tool and die apprenticeship program at Dad's old plant. The pay was decent, better than anything else I could get with just a high school degree, and I figured I'd help Mum get stable, then go to college the following year. That's where the first crack started. Mum appreciated the help, but she also started getting weird about it. She'd make comments like, "Your father would be so proud that you're taking care of the family," but then turn around and ask when I was planning to get serious about your future. Mixed messages that left me confused about what she actually wanted. My siblings were worse. Ryan would make jokes about me playing house with Mum. Illa kept sending me job listings for entry-level positions with growth potential, like I was unemployed instead of learning precision machining and working. Emily started telling her friends I was taking a gap year to figure things, which wasn't exactly wrong, but felt dismissive. The worst part was family dinners, their classes, their 5-year plan, and then the conversation stopped. Like learning to operate CNC precision wasn't worth discussing, and stuff happened politely. After 6 months, I tried to address it directly. I told Mom I was thinking about applying for spring admission, maybe starting college the next semester. She got this panicked look and said, "But what about the house payment? What about the bills? I can't handle all this alone." So I stayed another semester, then another. Meanwhile, Ryan was posting about his MCAT prep. Megan was getting job offers from tech companies, and Emily was visiting college campuses. The resentment started building on both sides. They felt like I was choosing the easy path instead of pushing myself. I felt like they were happy to let me sacrifice my plans as long as it didn't affect theirs. 2 years in, I finally put my foot down. I told Mom I was going back to school the following fall. Period. I'd saved enough to cover her expenses for a few months, and it was time for me to focus on my own future. That's when she dropped the guilt bomb. "I guess I'll have to sell the house then. I can't afford it without your help, and I don't want to be a burden on Ryan when he's starting medical school." Ryan, who was sitting right there, didn't offer to help. Neither did I, who was making good money at her tech job by then. They just sat there while Mom made it clear that my leaving would force her to give up the family home. So I stayed, and I started getting angry about it. But here's what really started. I wasn't just paying bills, I was funding their lifestyle. Ryan's medical school expenses. I was covering his car payment and insurance so he could focus on studies. Lauren's student loans from her computer science degree. I was making the monthly payment she was saving for a house. Emily's college application fees, SAT prep course, and campus visits all coming out of my paycheck. Meanwhile, they were treating me like the family screw-up who couldn't figure out his life. I wasn't silent. I started calling them out on their... When Ryan made jokes about my job, I'd point out that I was contributing more to the family financially than he was. When Megan sent me condescending job listings, I'd send them back with notes about how they paid less than what I was already making as a skilled tradesman. Whenever Mom would start sighing about what he had made, I would remind her the rest of the family could make sacrifices too. But that went on. I kept working, paying everyone's bills while they chased their dreams and treated me as charity to put up with. The tension just kept getting worse, and I knew sooner or later something would blow up. I just never expected it to happen. By the time I turned 23, I had been financially supporting my family for 5 years. And I mean, I was really supporting. I was not just helping out with groceries and utilities. I started keeping track of everything, so let me show you exactly where the money was going. I was covering 60% of Mum's mortgage payment, which came to $1,200 a month. Ryan's car payment and insurance were another $420 every month. Lauren's student loan payments cost me $380 a month. Emily's college expenses were at least $600 a month between tuition help, books, and emergency expenses. Then there was the family health insurance, which cost another $290 every month. I was the only one who had decent coverage through my job. House maintenance and repairs were another expense, whatever they happened to cost, usually somewhere between $200 and $500 a month. Altogether, I was putting out almost $3,000 every month. Meanwhile, I was living in the basement, driving a 12-year-old Honda, and eating whatever food was available at work every day. The breaking point came when Emily wanted me to pay for her spring break trip to Cancun. And she did not exactly ask me. She told me, I need $800 for spring break. Can you send it to me through Venmo by Friday? I looked at her. For what? Your spring break? All my friends are going and I cannot be the only one who does not. I just stared at her. You want me to pay for your vacation? It is not a vacation. It is a networking. Lots of important connections happen during spring break. Emily, you are 22 years old. Spring break is not net. She gave me that annoyed look. God, this is important. Then pay for it yourself. Have a part-time job. About $200 a week. That barely covers my social expenses. Your social expenses? Going out with friends, clothes, makeup, normal college stuff. I cannot pay for spring break with that. That was when it finally hit me. She honestly thought her part-time job was for fun money, while my full-time job was just to cover her actual expenses, and they all thought that. I looked around the table at my family. Ryan was nodding along like Emily's request made perfect sense. Megan was still scrolling through her phone and barely paying. Mom was doing that thing she always did during conversations about money. She stayed quiet, so later she could say she never actually asked me. No, Emily blinked. What do you mean, no? I am not paying for your spring break trip, but I already told everyone I was going. Then you better figure out how you to pay for it. She turned to Mom, are you listening to it? Say something. Mom sighed. Come. Emily works hard at school, and it is not like you cannot afford it. I work hard too. That does not mean you guys get to have me pay for your vacation. You do not take vacations, Ryan pointed out, like that somehow proved his point. Right, because I am too busy paying for your lives. The whole room went quiet. What is that supposed to mean? Megan finally asked as she looked up from her phone. It means I have been supporting this family for 5 years, while all of you act like I am the one without any ambition. I am paying your car payment, Ryan. I am paying your student loans, Megan. I am paying for Emily's college, and somehow I am still the disappointment. First, we never called you a disappointment. Second, we never asked you to do all of that, Mom said quietly. I looked at her for a moment. She was acting like she had never cried to me about the house whenever I talked about it. Are you serious right now? You never asked me? Every time I talked about going to school, you guilt-tripped me about the bills. Every time I wanted to save money for myself, there was suddenly some family emergency that needed my paycheck. Okay. No need to play the victim, dude, Ryan said. We are grateful for your help. Are you? Because you have a pretty funny way of showing it. I pulled out my phone and opened the notes application where I had been tracking the expenses. Want to know how much I have spent on this family over the past 5 years? $180,000? That is more than most people make in 4 years. I have paid Ryan's car expenses for 4 straight years. I have paid Lauren's student loans, Emily's college expenses, and helped with Mum's mortgage. And that is not even counting utilities, insurance, repairs, and all the random things you guys needed help with. They all just stared at me. I put off college to help keep this family afloat. 5 years later, you all have degrees and careers, and I am still here paying your bills while you make jokes about my job. Ethan, Mum started. We are family. That is what families do. They step up. You are right. Families do help each other. So why am I the only one doing the helping? Oh my God, just stop, Emily said. All of this because I asked for $800? You are stingy as hell, she yelled. The room went completely silent. That was the moment I made the decision that changed everything. All right, I am done, I said. Starting on the first day of next month, I am not paying another dollar toward anyone else's expenses. You want to call me stingy? Fine. I will show you what stingy actually looks like. Emily immediately started crying. What the hell is wrong with you? You cannot just abandon us. What about Mom's house? Ryan asked. What about it? You are finishing medical school and Megan makes good money. You two can split Mom's expenses if you are so worried about the house. Figure it out, you ungrateful piece of... Are you really abandoning your own mother? We have our own expenses, Megan said. So do I replied, as I pushed my chair back from the table. I am moving out at the end of the month. Mum started crying. Ethan, please. We cannot afford this without you. Then maybe you should have treated me like your son instead of treating me like a bank account. And that was when everything completely fell apart. The 3 weeks between my announcement and the day I moved out were tense as hell. They went through almost every stage of grief, but instead of reaching acceptance, they eventually landed on anger. First came denial. Mum kept asking whether I was actually serious about leaving and cutting off the financial. She would make comments like, once you have had more time to think about this, you will realize that family comes first. Then came the bargaining. Ryan offered to help me make a better budget so I could somehow continue supporting everyone. Megan suggested that instead of paying their regular bills, I could at least keep helping whenever an emergency came. Emily promised that she would pay me back so I would just cover the rest of her college expenses. When none of that worked, they moved straight into anger. Ryan started making little comments about how I was abandoning my family at the exact moment they supposedly needed me. Megan told anyone who would listen that I was selfish and ungrateful. Emily completely ignored me, which, honestly, was probably an improvement, but Mom was not about to let me walk away without getting her 55th birthday happened to fall during that period, and she started planning a huge celebration. She wanted a big party with plenty of guests, and she was unusually excited about the whole thing. She kept talking about how she had some big news to announce and how it was going to be a night everyone remembered. At first, I had no interest in going after everything that had happened, but Mom insisted. She sat me down and told me, "Ethan, I know what happened was completely wrong. We are sorry we did not realize how much we had worn you down over the years, but you are my son, and I want you at my birthday. You do not have to bring me anything you not want to. Just come and be there. Let us try to make things right. I promise you things will be exactly the way you want them to be." And of course, I believed her. Years of being manipulated and made to question my own feelings do not just disappear overnight. I should have known better. I knew exactly what I was planning. So I showed up that night at Tony's Italian restaurant. I brought nothing with, just myself. Exactly about 30 people. There were church friends, neighbors, some of Mum's co-workers, and the usual group of middle-aged suburban people who seem to live for this kind of family drama. About halfway through dinner, Mum stood up and raised her glass. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," she said. "I also want to make an announcement that I have been thinking about for a long time. Here it comes. As all of you know, I've been blessed with 4 children. 3 of them have made me incredibly proud because of their dedication to success and their commitment to family values." As she said that, she looked directly at Ryan, Megan, and Emily. The people around the table nodded along and made those little approving sounds people make at family celebrations. Ryan is finishing his medical degree and preparing for his resident. Megan was recently promoted to senior developer at her technology company, and Emily just graduated magna cum laude and landed a competitive marketing position. The room filled with polite applause. Then Mom's expression suddenly changed. "But tonight I want to talk about accountability and tough love. Sometimes as parents we make the mistake of enabling our children by continuing to support them long after they should have learned how to stand on their own. That is why I have made the difficult decision to stop enabling my son's lack of ambition. Ethan has been living at home for 5 years, refusing to pursue higher education or advance his career, content to work the same trade job while his siblings have gone out and built successful careers." The room went completely silent. I could feel every person there turning to look at me. Then Mom continued, "Effective immediately, I am selling this house and moving into a smaller condominium. It is time for Ethan to learn what real independence looks like without the safety net that has been holding him back." Mrs. Whitmore from church raised her hand and asked, "But Abigail, what about Ethan? Where is he going to live?" Mom gave her that fake sweet smile she always used whenever she wanted to make herself look calm and reasonable. "He is a grown man with a job. I am sure he will figure something out. Sometimes tough love is exactly what our children need if they are ever going to reach their full potential." Everyone around the table nodded. They were actually believing her story. They were buying into this ridiculous picture of me as the lazy son who needed to be thrown out of his own home for his own benefit. I sat there for maybe 10 seconds, just listening to all of them. Then I slowly stood up. She actually thought I was going to quietly walk out with my head down and let her embarrass me in front of half the town. Well, she was wrong. Just so everyone here understands what is really going on, letting my voice carry across the suddenly silent. My mother just stood in front of all of you and announced that she is making me homeless. What she conveniently left out is that I have been paying nearly $3,000 every month to support this family for the past 5 years. The whispers started almost immediately. I put off college after my dad died so I could help pay Mom's mortgage. I have been covering my brother's car payments, my sister's student loans, and my other sister's college expenses. And that trade job she was talking about? I am a skilled tool and die maker. I have spent the last 5 years working and supporting 4 adults while they went to school and built their careers. Mom's face went completely white. "Ethan, this is not the time or place." "No," I said. "I think this is exactly the time and place. Since you decided to humiliate me in front of everyone, then everyone deserves to hear the whole story." I took out my phone and opened the expense tracking application. $180,000. That is how much I have contributed to this family over the last 5 years. While my siblings were attending college and graduate school, I was working 50-hour weeks and running precision machining operations just to keep everyone financially afloat. By then, the entire room was buzzing. People were looking between Mom and me like they were watching a tennis match. 3 weeks ago, I told my family that I was finished being their personal bank account. I told them I was moving out and that the financial support was ending. This birthday party has nothing to do with tough love. It is about revenge. Ryan tried to cut me off. "Ethan, you are being dramatic. I am being honest, which is more than I can say for any of you." I looked straight at me. "You want to talk about accountability? Fine. Let us talk about accountability. You have been living off your son's paycheck for 5 years. Not anymore." Then I walked out and left my entire family sitting there with 30 people as witnesses to what had really been happening for the past 5 years. I drove back to the house, and just like I had expected, my key no longer worked. There was a note taped to the door. Your belongings are in storage unit 47 at secure storage on Maple Street. You have 30 days to make other arrangements. This is what is best for you. But there was one thing they did not already planned for. I already had an apartment lined up. The first month rent was utilities already in. I had expected retaliates. I just had not it so public. I spent that first night in my new apartment sitting and feeling strangely relieved. In 5 did not have what I did not understand was just how to struggle. While I was getting settled into my new apartment and enjoying the strange feeling of keeping my entire paycheck for myself, my family was finally discovering how much they had actually depended on my income. The first real sign of trouble came 2 weeks after Mum's birthday disaster. Ryan called me while I was at work. We had not spoken since the party. Ethan, we need to talk. Do we? It is about Mum's house. She cannot make the mortgage payment without the money you were contributing. Come on, man. That sounds like something you are going to have to figure out. You are almost finished with medical school, right? And what happened to selling the house? Didn't Mom announce that in front of everyone? I cannot afford to replace what you were paying. I have my own expense. So does everyone else. Figure it out. Come on, man. Do not be like that. We are family, are we? Mom was trying to punish me for setting boundaries. And now all of you are finding out exactly what those boundaries cost you. I ended the call, but the phone kept ringing after that. Mum called. Emily called. Even Ryan's girlfriend, whom I barely knew, started contact. They all had some version of the same request. Could I please just help them for a little while until they figured everything out? My answer was no. And honestly, watching them scramble was satisfying as hell. Within a month, the consequences became impossible to ignore. Mum had to put the house on the market, and this time it was not because she wanted to sell. She simply could not afford the mortgage without my contribution, and none of my siblings were willing or able to cover the difference. The house that had belonged to our family for 15 years, the same house I had worked my ass off to help keep, was now gone because they had pushed away the person who had been keeping them afloat. Ryan had to sell his car and buy something. It turned out that living on a medical student's budget was already difficult without another $400 a month going toward family expenses, and he could not take that on. Megan had to move back in with Mom for a while because her student loan payments had started again, and she could not afford both her apartment and her share of the family expenses. Emily had to leave college in the middle of the semester. Without my financial support, she could not afford her tuition, and none of her siblings were willing to pay it for. She ended up moving back home and getting a job at Target while she tried to figure out how she had to pay for school on her own. The funniest part was that they could not bring themselves to admit what was actually happening. Mom told her church friends that she was downsizing because she was getting ready for retirement. Ryan told everyone he had decided a more practical car made more sense. Megan said she was living at home because she wanted to save money. Emily claimed she was taking some time away from school so she could get work experience. They all had a different excuse, but none of them were willing to tell people the real reason. Meanwhile, I was doing better than I had ever been. Without $3,000 a month going toward everyone else's, I finally had money left over for myself for the first time since I was 18. I bought some decent furniture, got myself a newer car, and enrolled in night classes at the community college. That was where I met Claire. We ran into each other at the laundromat around 2 in the morning. She was doing laundry at that hour because she worked night shifts at the hospital, and I was there because I was still trying to figure out what having a normal social life was supposed to look like. You look pretty happy for somebody doing laundry at 2 in the morning, she said. I am just enjoying finally having money for quarters, I told her. She laughed. That is either really sad, or there is a pretty good story behind it. Definitely a good story. And somehow I ended up telling a complete stranger everything about my family, the financial manipulation, and the way they had publicly humiliated me. Claire listened to the whole thing without judging me. She asked questions that actually made sense. And when I finally finished, she said something that stayed with me. Sounds like they actually did you a favor. Now you know exactly what your family relationships were worth to them. About $3,000 a month. We started spending more time together after that. We would grab coffee on her shifts, have lunch on weekends, just talk. It was easy being around someone who did not have a list of expectations for what I should be doing with my life. About 6 months later, been officially dating for a while, she finally asked me about my family. Do you ever hear from them? Occasionally, usually when they need money for something. I still remember the way she raised one eyebrow. They still ask you for money after everything that happened. Desperation can make people shameless, she said. She was quiet for a moment before asking, what do you tell them? I do not tell them anything. I do not answer their calls. That was when she smiled. Good. They made their choice. Now they have to live with it. I knew right then that I was going to marry that woman. For about 8 months after I cut my family off, they left me alone. I started thinking maybe they had finally accepted that I was not coming back to finance their lives. I really should have known better. The harassment started again after I was promoted to lead tool and die maker at the plant. Someone from our hometown apparently saw the promotion mentioned in the company newsletter and passed the news along to my family. Suddenly, the messages started coming back. Not directly from Mom or my sibling. They were smarter than that. Instead, their friends, church acquaintances, and mutual connections started reaching out to me. People I had gone to high school with and had not spoken to in years suddenly found reasons to contact me. Hey Ethan, I ran into your mom at the grocery store. She seems really sad that you two are not talking. Maybe you should give her a call. Mom's church friends would approach me at the gas station. Your mother talks about you all the time. She is so proud of your promotion. I'm sure she would love to hear from you. Even some of my co-workers started getting contact. Lauren's college roommate somehow found out where I worked and called my supervisor. Supposedly she wanted to network, but it was pretty obvious she was really trying to get information about my job and my personal life. The message was always basically the same. My family missed me. They wanted to fix things. They wanted us to be But there was one thing none of these people ever mentioned. Not one of them said my family was sorry. Not one of them acknowledged what they had actually done wrong, and nobody seemed interested in asking me how I felt about any of it. Claire noticed the pattern before I did. They are running a campaign, she said one night after I told her about yet another supposedly random. What do you mean? They are trying to wear you down through social pressure. She explained that if enough people kept telling me how much my family missed me, eventually I would start feeling guilty about keeping my boundaries in place. She was right. The constant messages were exhausting. Not because I missed my family, but because I was tired of having to explain over and over why I had no interest in reconciling. Then things got worse. Mum started showing up in places where she knew I would be. The grocery store I always visited on Sunday mornings, the coffee shop near the plant, and even the community college where I took my night classes. She would somehow be there whenever I arrived, and then she would put on these huge emotional performances in front of whoever happened to be nearby. Ethan, oh my God, I cannot believe I ran into you. I have been hoping I would see you. The first time it happened, I was completely caught off guard. Before I could even react, she grabbed me and pulled me into a hug. She started talking loudly about how much she had missed me while people around us watched. We need to sit down and talk, sweetheart. I know I made mistakes, but family is family. I pulled myself away from her. There's nothing to talk about. Her expression changed immediately. The tears came out, and suddenly she had that wounded look that was clearly meant to make me look like the cruel one. I do not understand why you are being so cruel. I am your mother, well, ex-mother at this point. I could tell immediately that she did not like hearing that. She looked at me like I had just murdered her dog. I walked away, but I could hear her talking to the other customers about how difficult everything was and how hard she was trying to reach her ungrateful son. This happened 4 more times over the next month. By the 5th ambush, I had completely had enough. So I called her. Stop stalking me. I do not know what you mean, sweetheart. You do not shop at that grocery. You do not drink coffee, and you sure as hell do not take classes at the community college. You are deliberately showing up at places where you know I will be so you can ambush me. I just want to see my son. She paused. You want to manipulate me in front of witnesses so I look like the bad guy for keeping my own boundary. Silence filled the line. I miss you, she finally said, and this time she dropped the innocent act. I made a mistake, and I am trying to fix it. You made multiple mistakes over several years. So what? Are you going to punish us forever because of money? Yes. She was quiet for a moment. Then what do you want from me? Nothing. That is what you still do not understand. I do not want anything from you. I want you to leave me alone. I cannot do that. You are my son. Then you should have treated me like one. I hung up and blocked her number, but that did not stop the campaign. If anything, it seemed to make them even more desperate. 2 weeks after I blocked Mom, things escalated in a way that finally showed me how far my family to go to get my financial support back. Claire came home from work one day looking angrier than I had ever seen her. Your sister Megan, my supervisor at the hospital. I put my coffee down. What? She introduced herself as your sister, professional, because I was supposedly destructive behavior. She actually tried to get you in trouble. She told my supervisor that maybe someone working in healthcare should not be supporting a person who's estranged from his family because of supposed mental health problems. She suggested that my supervisor might need to look into the situation. She was trying to make me seem unstable by association, like dating me with poor judgment, and maybe could not be trusted around patients. What did your supervisor say? She told Megan that my personal relationships were none of her business. They affected my job performance. But Ethan, your sister actually tried to interfere with my career. That crosses a line. He was right. Going after Claire's job was no longer just harassment. This had crossed over sabotage. I am done polite. They want to play hardball? Fine. That was what she told me about the document collecting. I had no idea keeping record. Every message sent through one of their friends, every supposedly accident, and every new escalation had been documented. She had been building a case file without even telling me. I have been documenting everything done for the past several months, she said. He showed me a folder on every boundary violation, every attempt to manipulate, and every escalate, including their attempt my career. The folder was incredibly screenshots of messages, photos she had taken when Mum happened to show up at I regularly, and even a recording of Mum's public. Apparently Claire had started recording once she realized there was a pattern. What are you planning to do with all of it? I am going to organize everything along with a very clear warning about what happened. That is hot. Claire looked at. Shut up. She spent the next evening putting together what she called the full documentation. It was professional, factual, and honestly pretty damning. She created a complete timeline covering 6 months of, including evidence and statement who had witnessed. Then she sent the entire file to all 4 of Mom, Ryan, Megan, and Emily. He included a message that was calm and polite, but left absolutely no room to understand. This documentation was 6 months harassment directed as the timeline showed. Your behavior has progressed from indirect pressure manipulation to direct interference in our employment relation. If any member of your family or anyone acting on your behalf contacts either of us again in any capacity, we will file formal complaints with law enforcement and provide this documentation to the relevant employers and institutions. Ethan has repeatedly made his boundaries clear. It is time for you to respect them. The response came almost immediately, exactly as Claire had expected. Ryan called me at work the following day, and he was furious. You could not have your girlfriend threaten to ruin our careers. What? I said, pretending. I was enjoying the panic in his voice a little more than I probably should have. This is not funny. Seriously, this is insane. We are trying to rebuild our relationship. What are you saying? I asked again. Ethan, we just want you to come home. She is turning you against your family. I am home. That was all I said before hanging up and blocking his number. That evening, I got a group text from another number I did not recognize. Ethan, this has gone way too far. We need to talk and figure out how we are supposed to move forward as a family. And next time I call you, you better not act like a freaking deaf person. I showed the message to Claire. They are still trying. Oh God. For the next 2 days, everything went quiet. I started thinking maybe they had finally understood that I was serious. Then Claire's mom called her sounding confused and upset. Someone claiming to be Ethan's mother contacted me through Facebook. She said she was worried about your relationship and thought I should know that he had anger issues and was estranged from his family because of mental health problem. They were not backing down. At that point, I was completely done trying to be nice. Claire's harassment folder had turned into an incredible collection of evidence. Everything was organized with the kind of precision you would expect from someone who had spent months watching idiots make one bad decision after another. I found a lawyer. Let's call him Daniel. Daniel looked through Claire's documentation and started grinning like it was Christmas morning. Your girlfriend is thorough, he said. I have seen Federal Bureau of Investigation cases that were not this organized. She really likes detail. Well, her attention to detail is about to cost your family some serious money. We are preparing to file a defamation lawsuit and request a restraining order, but first we are going to give them one chance to settle this quietly. If they refuse, then we are going to burn the whole house. The defamation for $50,000 in damages, including lost wages, emotional distress, and damage to professional reputation. The restraining order would legally require them to stay at least 500 feet away from Claire and me, our home, and our workplaces. Megan was the first one to get served, and it happened at her company. According to one of her co-workers, whom Claire knew through mutual friends, Megan completely lost it in the office when the process server handed her the legal papers. He is suing me for trying to help him. I was only concerned about his girlfriend's judgment. Apparently, Megan spent the rest of the day crying at her desk and calling everyone she knew to complain about how unfair the whole thing was. Mom was served at her new full-time job, which was the first real job she had held in 20 years. She was working at a department store, and the process server found her folding clothes in the women's section. The manager eventually had to send her home early because she could not stop crying and kept telling customers that her ungrateful son was destroying the with lawsuit. Ryan received his papers at the hospital where he was completing his residency. A process server walking into a medical facility and handing legal documents to a medical resident is the kind of thing people notice. Supervisors notice it, program directors notice, and co-workers definitely notice. Emily, who was still living at home and working in retail, was served at Target. Her manager was not exactly thrilled to have a legal fight unfolding in the middle of the workplace. The lawsuit hit my family in the two places that mattered most to them, their money and their reputation. Megan had to hire her own attorney to defend herself against the defamation lawsuit. Her legal expenses started at $5,000 just for the initial consultation and response. Her attempt to have the case dismissed failed, which meant the legal bills kept growing. Mom could not afford a lawyer on her department store salary. She decided to represent herself, which went about as well as anyone could have expected. Daniel tore her apart during the deposition. The depositions were recorded, and Daniel made sure to ask direct questions about the $180,000 I contributed to family. Mum eventually had to admit under oath that I had been financially supporting the family who had publicly portrayed me as a disappointment. The restraining order was granted without any contest. They were legally prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Claire or me, our home, our workplaces, or contacting either of us in any way. If they violated the order, they could be arrested immediately. But this was where things got really satisfying. The restraining order became part of the public record. Ryan's medical residency program discovered it during a routine update to his background in having a restraining order connected to harassment does not exactly give the impression of excellent professional judgment. He was not kicked out of his residency, but it certainly did nothing good for his reputation. Word started spreading around the hospital about the resident dealing with family drama and legal problem. Megan's company found out when her attorney contacted the Human Resources Department about the defamation. Technology companies generally do not love having employees involved in harassment lawsuits, especially when those lawsuits involve an attempt to interfere with another person's career. She did not get fired, but her next promotion was mysteriously delayed. Emily's retail job learned about the situation after she had to miss work for legal proceedings. Target does not pay enough to make dealing with employees who bring legal drama into the workplace worthwhile. Mom's department store also found out after she repeatedly had emotional breakdowns about the lawsuit during work hours. Customer service jobs are difficult enough without crying in front of customers and telling them about your family's legal problem. While my family was busy dealing with attorneys, legal bills, and the professional consequences of their own choices, Claire and I were having the time of our lives. I had already been promoted again at work. By then, I was running the entire tool and die department and making more money than I had ever imagined I could. I had worked my way up, and now the plant had landed several major contracts while my department was performing better than ever. Claire also got selected for a leadership development program at the hospital. 6 months after we filed the lawsuit, Daniel called me with an update. They want to settle, he said. They finally realized we were serious, and they cannot afford to keep fighting this legal battle. How much are they offering? $50,000. The full amount? Yes, $50,000, and they are also agreeing to a permanent restraining order and a non-disclosure agreement. They will not be allowed to talk about you or Claire to anyone. They are paying us $50,000 to shut up and walk away. More accurately, they are paying you $50,000 to make this entire situation disappear. The legal fees were already draining them, and the restraining order was starting to create problems their jobs. They could not afford to let the case continue. I thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. Deal. The settlement check arrived on a Tuesday. It was made out for $50,000 to Claire and me, and it was the first major amount of money we had ever received together that did not come from me working myself to exhaustion while supporting people who never appreciate. That weekend, I took Claire back to the same laundromat where we had first met 2 years earlier. It was 2 in the morning, just like that first night. "Why are we doing laundry at 2 in the morning when we have a perfectly good washer and dryer?" she asked. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small ring box. I figured if you said no, at least we would have clean clothes for the breakup. She started laughing before I had even gotten down on one knee. She looked at the ring, then looked at me, and finally glanced around the laundromat. "You are seriously proposing to me in a laundromat at 2 in the morning right after we got paid to make your family shut up forever. So, is that a yes?" "That is the most romantic thing I've ever heard." "Yes, you absolute weird." And just like that, I was engaged to the love of my family is still struggling. Mom is still working retail. Ryan's medical resident of concern, professional development. Megan is stuck in the same job with no real chance of advancement. Emily is still living at home, working part-time, and taking community college classes that she can barely afford. Meanwhile, I am running an entire department, married to an incredible woman, and living in a house that I actually own. And the best part is that they cannot say a single word about any of it. Checkmate.